All right. Well, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Shopify Sales Tax Blueprint and talking about a smarter way to handle sales tax for your Shopify store. A couple housekeeping items as we get started here. This session is being recorded, so we will share the recording after the webinar so everybody can have that. We'll also share the slides, and we'll certainly be referencing a few resources throughout today's session. So want to give you the chance to get those as well. And so we'll send those out in a follow-up email in case you have want to get access to those resources or to share those with your team. All of that will be made available to you. Throughout the webinar, you'll see in the Zoom panel here, you have the ability to either chat or ask questions in the Q&A panel. We ask just use it if you have a question you'd like to get asked in the Q&A, put it in the Q&A panel and we can address it for you. We'll try to do some response on the fly, but also we have time at the end of today's session to answer any questions as well. We have an hour blocked off for today's session, but we do not expect we'll use the whole hour for content. We want to get about 30 minutes through the content here and leave plenty of time for people's questions. We had some questions submitted before, which was amazing. And we will also answer questions as they come in today. A quick disclaimer, if you've never been to one of our TaxCloud events, we always like to just be clear, today we're going to be sharing our perspective and our learnings from working with, well over 2,000 e-commerce brands on their sales tax needs. Tom has a much longer experience career working in sales tax. And so we hope everyone walks away from today with really valuable information they can apply to their business. But we also want to be really clear if you have a specific tax or legal situation that you need to get resolved or want insight on, we really do recommend that you work with a tax professional. We have a great network of those here at TaxCloud. So if there's questions we can't answer for you today, we are also happy to make recommendations and referrals for those as well. Our speakers today, my name is Ryan. I am our Vice President of Go-to-Market here at TaxCloud. And I'm happy to be joined here with Tom, who leads our filing team at TaxCloud. Tom, I'll give you a chance to do your kind of full intro in a few seconds, but mind just saying a quick hello to everyone, make sure your audio is coming through clear and we're all set.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I look forward to talking to everyone today about sales tax. I'm Director of Filing here at TaxCloud, and yeah, I'll give a little more detail about my background in a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. So a few updates on kind of what we'll be covering today. We're going to start with the basics. We'll get through those pretty quickly. We definitely have people here I expect to have varying levels of sales tax knowledge. And so we want to just make sure we're setting the table for the discussion. Then I'm going to talk about some changes we've seen in the sales tax landscape within the Shopify ecosystem. I know many people here are already using tools or maybe looking at alternatives or have maybe seen updates from Shopify. And so we want to kind of just give a level setting perspective on some of the changes we're seeing. Then Tom's going to speak just about sales tax filing and some of what he's seen, some of the challenges we see from some of the top businesses that work from us. And how we work with them, things that you can prepare for to make sure you're in good shape. We'll finish up by just talking about some of what we hear from some businesses that are using TaxCloud today. Again, our goal here is to share our perspective and learnings. We'll talk from the perspective of TaxCloud, but we're not here just to do a sales pitch. We want this to be helpful knowledge for everyone, regardless of what provider you end up using for your sales tax needs. And we'll finish up today with a live Q&A and some resources that you can use in the future. So let's start off on the kind of the one-on-one of what we're talking about here. Tom will go much deeper on this stuff, but when we're talking about sales tax today, we're going to be really focusing on three primary areas that you'll want to be aware of. And some of this I know will be pretty intro for some people, but the first concept is this whole idea of Nexus, right? And Nexus is the thresholds you have to pass in order to have tax obligations within a state or jurisdiction. And this will vary across the states. And depending on where you're selling, generally, if you're just getting started in one area, you may hit Nexus very quickly in the state where you're in today or in the area around you. But then as you grow, you'll start to hit this in more and more states and then have more and more responsibility to take care of that. And Tom will talk in a little bit more detail about what Nexus looks like and how that can impact your filing down the line. Then we talk about sales tax calculation and collection. If you're using a tool like Shopify Tax today, you can really easily go into that platform within the admin panel and see where you're collecting today, and it give you a view of that as well. For most businesses on Shopify Tax, Shopify will take care of that. They kind of own the checkout, and they're great at handling that for you. And then what you really want to do is to work with a great provider to help with everything outside of the calculation and collection. And then the last part of sales tax kind of basics that you'll want to think about is on the filing side, as we mentioned. And so as you're growing and selling in these different states, you'll have obligation to start collecting. You'll need to put in a solution to help you do that. And then how do you actually do the work of working with the states and jurisdictions to make sure that you're filing accurately and on time, either on these monthly or quarterly cadences. And this is all stuff that certainly you can do on your own, but there's solutions like TaxCloud out there that can help you automate a lot of this. So hopefully it just kind of provides kind of an intro view here. I want to talk a bit about what we've seen through the lens of this Shopify sales tax landscape. And when I talk about landscape, I really just mean how are businesses solving sales tax problems for their business. And there's sort of a timeline view that we've seen a lot of the brands that we talk to have gone through. And there's this period that we kind of put as 2018, where sales tax really became a big issue for growing e-commerce businesses, really up and through the last few years, that we kind of call the old way. And the old way, if you were selling on Shopify, was that for most businesses, you would use one or two options. You'd either go with one of the large legacy sales tax providers that would plug into Shopify and would handle all of your Shopify needs, from Nexus, calculation, and filing. And the reason a lot of people would go that route is because Shopify didn't really have a strong sales tax solution at the time. They launched that in 2022. And so you'd go with this larger provider, and that was your option at the time. Or you could go option two, to just try to figure this stuff out on your own and do all this manually, either yourself or working with a CPA or an accounting firm to go and do that. We've now kind of moved into this world today where Shopify had launched their tax product and has invested a lot into strengthening that product, adding new functionality, and really making that a best-in-class checkout experience for brands. So whether it's businesses on their Shopify Plus product all the way down to their basic plan, you can really rely on Shopify for calculation at checkout. And we're seeing that a lot of businesses now are looking to Shopify Tax at calculation, and it's becoming the more preferred way of doing calculation at checkout. Where they need a lot of help is to find someone that can help on the filing side, because working directly with the states to get registered in the states, to handle filing, to deal with filing issues, having a team that can really support you and have your back in addition to a tool becomes really valuable for your business, particularly as you're starting to scale from 1 to 2 states to half the country to maybe filing nationwide. And so that's sort of the evolution we see a lot of businesses going through over the last few years. And so the difference of what happens in this is that the old way became this world of, if you're doing on your own, there's a lot of upkeep and time and manual work that you were doing. And then if you're working on these large providers, again, we're not here to call out these tools individually, but the experience that we hear very often is these tools became very expensive over time, and these tools didn't necessarily prioritize customer support or being responsive to your support needs or being there to help you when you actually need someone. And so you're paying a lot for a solution that maybe wasn't necessary for you and likely came with a really heavy price tag. And hopefully that hasn't been the experience for folks on this call, but it's the sort of story we hear a lot when we're talking to businesses. And the new way, which is what we'll be talking a lot about today, is leaning much more into a world where yes, the tools are doing much more automation. They tie in much more closely with Shopify Tax. You can rely on Shopify Tax because it's a tool that you already know. And then you can have the support of a team that has great relationships with all of the states. And we'll be talking about this SST program that's also part of that, as well as pricing that makes sense for growing brands and really prioritizes support and having a team there to help your back. We consider ourselves one of the solutions in the new way. We're certainly not the only one, so we recommend that. We'll talk a bit about what you can look for if you're looking at other tools that are out there. But we certainly look at this as the preferred way for brands in the modern day to be looking at how they handle their sales tax filing needs. So that's kind of just the setup between kind of what you need to know and kind of what the ecosystem looks like today. But now I think, Tom, I'd like to pass off to you to let's talk a little bit more about the filing side of this world and what goes into that, why having a partner is so important, and what the sort of stuff your team deals with every day.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Ryan. My name is Tom Hoops, Director of Filing at TaxCloud. I've worked in sales tax for about 13 years now. I have my CMI certification and worked in consulting, and then also worked in compliance at Vertex. I've worked pre-Wayfair, post-Wayfair. I've done registrations. I've done Nexus reviews. I've done audits. Multi-state compliance. So kind of seen sales tax transform over the years, and and happy to be a part of TaxCloud and able to help companies navigate the sales tax world. Some of the key filing challenges that I've noticed, especially in the e-commerce businesses, is understanding your footprint. So understanding where you need to be registered, understanding your tax collection responsibility. There's over 13,000 taxing jurisdictions in the United States. So making sure that you have a system or a process or a tool that can help you calculate in all of those jurisdictions. And then also report in those jurisdictions and make sure that you're reporting timely and accurately. Registering in those jurisdictions can be a burden as well. So figuring out a way to quickly do that, to try to mitigate any type of audit risk that you could be exposed to, and handling those registrations in a way where it benefits your business, and then it also, as sales tax being a pass-through tax, you want to make sure you're collecting that tax correctly from your customers, so that when it does come time to you get audited or you're in a situation where you need to report that, you've now collected that tax from your customer and you've paid it timely to that state. If you didn't register, the audit risk becomes a lot larger, and you can open yourselves up to really states can go back as far as you should have been registered in that state to get that money that should have been collected. So using a system that can track that, keep track of it, and file it for you is just even more important. And then making sure that system is making payments on time, keeping up with due dates, taking advantage of discounts that are available, passing those savings along to you. It's just huge. At TaxCloud, we're a certified service provider, which allows our customers to take advantage of the SST program, which states in our contract that we're not allowed to charge our customers for those filings that we do. There's ways to kind of make the most out of sales tax and take advantage of some opportunities to help your company save money. All right, so one of the big questions with sales tax is Nexus. A lot of people have probably heard the buzzword of economic Nexus and Wayfair, which is a really important side of sales tax currently. It doesn't take away from physical Nexus, so that's still physical. If you have a building or you have a warehouse or you have employees in a state, that's gonna give you physical Nexus in that state and require you to register. So you still want to keep track of where you're hiring, where your warehouses are located, where you're storing your product. That still opens you up to having physical Nexus, and if you get audited in one of those states, you're gonna have tax liability there. The newer Nexus is going to be the economic Nexus, and this is what came from Wayfair versus South Dakota. And this is where, if you want, thanks, Ryan. and this is where if you have a certain number of sales in a jurisdiction, are you going to have to register for sales tax collection there? Um, and these states are all different. They try to have some uniformity, but getting the states to decide on something is not easy. So there's going to be differences when it comes to economic nexus. Some states it's going to be if you have $100,000 of sales in that state or 200 transactions. Some states it's going to be $500,000 of sales. They don't track transactions. It'll just be the number of sales. Some states are going to look at your marketplace sales and count that towards your economic presence. And some states aren't going to look at marketplace sales. So it's important to choose a solution that's going to look at that and be able to help you monitor all of those transactions and let you know, hey, it's time to register, or you have time, you can wait to register in these states. You can also go with the path of choosing to voluntarily register, so you don't have to wait to hit economic nexus. If you see you're going to hit economic nexus in certain states, you can decide, hey, this is a time for me to do a project. I know I haven't hit economic nexus in all of these states, but I'm going to let me register in these 5 states or these 10 states, whatever works best for your situation and your business. So using a tool like TaxCloud that, as you see on the screen, helps you kind of keep track of that and monitor it and help you make that decision. Okay, I need to register, or I have some time to register in these states. It's a very, very helpful tool here. Another thing, just kind of best practice, and I've seen it, is where companies decide I'm going to register in every state, even though they may not have hit economic nexus. Something I would advise against, and what I did advise against while working in consulting. And the reason for that is you're going to open yourselves up to more expenses. It's going to cost your business more to collect and file in those states. And then it's also, if you don't hit the economic nexus, you're just kind of throwing away money there. So it adds a lot of overhead as well. So keeping track and doing a big registration project like that, you're going to have to make sure that you begin filing on time. The registrations are going to be expensive. Maintaining all the login information, making sure that that's all handed off to the appropriate parties is a lot. So I definitely recommend monitoring your Nexus, keeping track of it, and having a plan to register in those jurisdictions as you hit Nexus or as you get close to hitting Nexus. All right. As I mentioned before, a big benefit of using a company like TaxCloud is the SST filings. There's only a couple of certified service providers that can use these SST filings. It's a contract that we enter, and the states highlighted in yellow on the screen are going to be the states that are handled through SST. So it's not all the states, but it's about half of them. Some of the numbers that we've done for our customers in 2024 are listed on this. We've saved our companies a lot of money by filing with the SST. One of the benefits of it as well is that we get contacts at the states. So if there is an issue with something, we can work through those contacts to get your situation resolved, which is a lot different than the sales tax states. So we call them direct file states. They're the non-SST states. Those states, you're going to have to call that state. You're going to get stuck on hold. You're going to have to get a POA. You're going to have to provide all this information just to get to the bottom of what happened and then potentially get it resolved. So by using a company like TaxCloud or other certified service providers, it kind of gives us a backdoor into some of these states to help get information from them and then help resolve issues. It also puts a lot of the responsibility for the filing onto TaxCloud. So saves our companies a lot of money and a lot of hassle to manage these. What's kind of different between an SST state and a direct file state is that our name's on the return when we file in these states. So even though it's on behalf of our customers, it's our return that gets filed for SST. So in the event of an audit, it's TaxCloud that gets audited. It doesn't kind of take the liability away from our customers, but it does take the hassle away of having to manage that audit, manage the responsibility of filing and paying on time, and puts that onto TaxCloud. So a lot of benefits with the SST, and certainly something I would recommend any company looking into that has a tax liability in multiple states. All right, so some of the common mistakes and best practices, and something I've noticed over the years, especially since Wayfair, is a lot of businesses they may have decided to go to a company, a sales tax provider, because the tax burden became too much for them to handle. They're maybe faced with the decision: do I need to hire somebody to help me, or do I need to go to a company that can do this for me? And what happened was your business continued to grow. You began to register in jurisdictions. Your tax footprint exploded. So maybe you went from filing in a couple of states that was maybe manageable for yourself to now you're registered in every state. So something to consider is, if you are looking to change providers, is understanding that footprint, because it may be something that you're not familiar with. You may have registered in so many states that it's just kind of been automated and back of mind for a while. So if you are thinking about switching providers, definitely get an understanding of your footprint, get the login information for all of the states that you're registered in, and understand what that is going to look like if you are to switch to a new provider. I've seen companies that decide to switch, within a month. They want to move really quickly. Maybe their contract's expiring and they need somebody else to help. They're now understanding what their footprint is, and now they're stuck in a situation where they're not able to file themselves, but they're kind of in between switching providers. So certainly prepare to switch for providers, and look at your contract and see when it's going to end, and give yourself a couple months to kind of plan that transition to a different provider, because that Nexus footprint could have ballooned over the last couple of years, and you could be registered in many more states than what you were expecting you were, or maybe you thought was there. So it's certainly something I've seen over the last couple of years. Some of the other mistakes is filing on time. It's kind of to that point earlier, is understanding where you are, what the due dates are, having your login information, things like that. You want to make sure that's all being maintained and correct. Another best practice is reconciling. One of the ways I describe reconciliation, especially when you're using a sales tax provider, is the sales tax provider is going to have numbers in their system, where you're actually going to have dollars in a bank account. So you always want to make sure, I know that's a very simple way to put it, but you're going to want to reconcile to make sure that those numbers in your sales tax system are going to match the numbers, or the dollars that are in a bank account. So developing a process and understanding that process that you can follow month after month. Systems like TaxCloud, we make it really easy. We can provide reports for you to download each month, so that you can look at, again, the numbers that are in our system to make sure that those match the dollars that are in your bank account. And then making sure that those numbers, end up getting paid to the state out of that bank account that they're collected in. So yeah, just some best practices and common mistakes. Yeah. So and discounts I see on here too. Certainly want to take advantage of those. Make sure you're filing and paying on time. And then, if you can use a system like TaxCloud that's taking advantage of the SST, that's going to save your company even more money.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you walking through that and sharing your experience. And we'll have Tom here as we kind of hop into the Q&A. So if people have any of those questions, definitely feel free to put them in. And if you've dealt with anything related to filing, I'm sure a lot of this will have rung true to you so far. So to kind of transition, and now wanted to just talk a bit about how you take this information and then practically make the decision on transitioning or implementing a tool and going through the transition. And our goal here is to speak to this pretty generally, and so you'll have to look at solutions that are out there to find the best path for you. But as I kind of previewed at the front here, most businesses, when you're looking at sales tax solution, if you're making the choice that you want to go and automate this and work with tools to solve this problem, you're generally going to start in three places. There are the legacy providers, which I talked about. They're going to come with really powerful features. They'll actually handle the end-to-end on Shopify. But typically the price point is the biggest determining factor that you have to think about as you're implementing tools like this, and the level of support that you feel like you're going to need. Are you going to have someone like Tom and his team there to pick up the phone and help support you when you have these situations? And how valuable is that to you as you're evaluating tools that are out there? And as I previewed at the start here, within the Shopify ecosystem, what's unique is that Shopify Tax really is actually a really strong product that can help handle a lot of the calculation at checkout. Not every e-commerce platform offers this, and so that's one. It is certainly something that we recommend for businesses from a checkout perspective. A few things just to keep in mind here is that the Shopify Tax product is going to be really focused to Shopify. So if you are selling through other channels today, you'll need to make sure that you have a solution to actually track those orders. So if you have those coming out of like an ERP, like with QuickBooks, or if you're selling through marketplaces today, you'll want to make sure you have a way to kind of consolidate those orders and have good visibility into those as well. And then, as we talked about, there's platforms that you can integrate to really handle the filing for your business and more. And so these filing partners, and we do consider TaxCloud to be one of those, are really built to offer the flexibility you need. We can handle all of those different platforms that you're selling through and integrate that data for you. And then we really prioritize having a great team that can help support you in addition to a powerful piece of software to help automate this and provide a lot of the reporting that you need. And typically the price point for a tool like ours is going to be much more competitive to some of the legacy solutions that are out there. So when you're looking at tools that are out there, if you decide to work with a filing partner like TaxCloud, a few things that you'll want to keep on your list as you're going through your evaluation. Automation and accuracy should be standard. And so you'll want to look at reviews that are out there. How often are you seeing people mention, we had issues with our filing, these sort of things? That information is there. You should be able to do it. The whole point of working with a solution is to have someone that you can trust. Trust is really key in this world. And so making sure that that's something that you're getting. Two, we really think that the responsiveness of the team behind the software is really important. And so regardless of what tool you go to, make sure that you're going to have real people who know their stuff that you'll be able to work with on this stuff. Third is understanding your complexity and your growth. If you're really early on in your journey and you only have Nexus, physical Nexus in the state that you're in and maybe one other state, you likely can start small or on the different tools that are out there before you actually go and make a bigger investment. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And then evaluating your integration needs, as I was just talking about, what are all the channels you're selling on, and can this platform integrate that data for you? And then the last piece here is, and Tom talked about it, but we can't stress enough how much the SST program is just a huge value add and cost saver for brands that are selling today. If you're selling primarily in the US, there's really no reason not to go with a provider like this. You'll get these more or less free for you. And there's a list of providers who can offer that. And that's also a great sign in order to keep up and stay in the program. Providers have a certain level of expertise and performance that we have to every year get renewed and be part of this program on a regular cadence. So it's also good to know that if someone's a certified partner, that means that there's trust there as well. A few, just to kind of close out here, I think just a few best practices we like to share. I mean, one of the biggest things that we hear when making the switch is ultimately the time it's going to take to do it, as well as concern and risks that go into potentially looking at other tools and going through that. So some best practices from our team that we like to call out, and Tom touched on this a little bit. One, make sure you have a good tracking of your historical data in a world where you potentially could lose access to your existing solution. Really important to have that for your own peace of mind. Two, you want to make sure that your previous provider and you are aligned on your last filing date. Remember that filing is going to happen for the month after the month that you're in. And so making sure that you're both with a new provider and the previous provider, you have good understanding on who's taking care of which filing, because ultimately you could be left in a tough situation if you haven't fully transitioned off or onto a new tool. Make sure you're going and doing the work and testing platforms. Most platforms are going to offer a trial. They're going to offer the chance for you to talk to someone to help in that evaluation. And so make sure you're doing that work. And then we like to recommend that you backfill about 12 months of transactions. The beauty is if you're primarily selling on Shopify today, most of that will be taken care of for you. It's one of the benefits of using Shopify and also still using Shopify Tax. And, I think just to reflect that, common pitfalls, as we've talked about, losing access to old data, missed deadlines that can cause some issues, turning off tax calculation too early. So if you're not using Shopify Tax and you're switching to Shopify Tax, make sure you're timing that correctly. And then we definitely always recommend testing the integrations that exist there. That having integrations to the platforms you're selling on today is really key. And make sure you're doing the work to test those, and that'll go a long way before you make the switch. In terms of timeline, we like to tell customers generally you can switch fully over to a new platform within a 4-week timeline. We've talked about some of what the work that you would do once you have a tool that you're going to go to, doing the work to make sure you have a historical backup. And then, within a week, make sure you're notifying your original provider, aligning on that timeline. Then you can go live with your new solution. So go live with Shopify Tax within your within your 3rd week here. Turn them on. You can really do that at any time, but just to give you a sense, in the first 3 weeks, you could get that done. And then within that first 4 weeks, within the first month, at the end of that first month, you can then work with the provider that you switch to make sure you're reviewing and doing your first successful filing. So make sure you're kind of outlining about 4 weeks to do this work. Again, the best providers are going to handle a lot of the work for you, but having this timeline in mind is going to be really important as you're deciding to make a switch. And then lastly here, we've tried not to make this too much of a TaxCloud sales pitch here, but if you're on Shopify today, we definitely recommend, go into the Shopify App Store. You can search for sales tax. You're going to find TaxCloud here. Our experience in Shopify, we have close to 800 stores using us today, over 37 5-star reviews, and have gone through a lot of experience in helping customers go through this story that we've talked about today. I've included some quotes from customers, and you'll see some of the competitors we talked about called out here. And the general theme that you're going to see through all of this are customers who were kind of living in the old way of doing their filings and their calculation with a legacy provider, and then went through this transition of trusting Shopify to handle their tax calculation, and then investing into a provider who could help support them. And the experience is generally really strong support through that migration, huge cost savings on the other side of it, and a lot more trust in working with Shopify, who they already know and trust, and a provider like TaxCloud, who has their back. And for a lot of businesses like the ones highlighted here, it wasn't something they actually had confidence they could do right away. But after making the switch, there was a lot of confidence on the other side that they had a tool in place that would work for them. So with that, hopefully this provided good insight people wanted from today's session. We have a few prepared questions, but what I'd like to do is that came in from people as you registered, so you'll probably see your name come up on the screen here. But if you have additional questions, please put them into the Q&A. I'll pull up the slide with our questions, but we can also answer questions as they come in. Tom, before we fully transition to that, anything else on your end that we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on quickly before we jump into the Q&A?
No, I think that was good. Yeah, one of the best practices I missed on was the testing, making sure you're testing. So thanks for grabbing that in your slide. Yeah, really important. Make sure you test before you go live with the sales tax provider. Again, you want to make sure those numbers and that the tax system match the dollars that are in your bank account.
Awesome. All right, so I'll pull up a few here as we wait for other ones to come in. We did have one that came in earlier in the webinar from Lauren. Oh, actually, no, that's a newer one for Lauren. Let me just answer this other one, and then we'll switch to Lauren's. From Gabby that said, does Shopify's tax calculation automatically update with states and counties make sales tax changes? Again, like we don't work within the Shopify business, but our understanding is that they are keeping this up to date. TaxCloud, if you're selling on other platforms, we do offer calculation on other platforms, and that's something that we're regularly doing for those platforms on the calculation for those. So it's the obligation of, or the best tools are going to do that work to make sure that that's happening for you. That's the whole benefit of working with a solution like ours. Tom, hopefully I didn't overstate anything there, but okay, let's see. Can you explain?
I can take that first one.
Sure.
Yeah. Should I collect tax from customers on Shopify platform? So I mean, this is a little bit of a loaded question because it's going to depend on a bunch of different things. If you should be collecting tax, then you should be. So I know that that's kind of a silly answer, but there's a lot of stuff to look into. Um, I believe Shopify, there might be and Brian, maybe you know better. Is there a marketplace aspect to Shopify?
Yeah, that's correct. So Shopify, there's the marketplace component for Shopify is exclusively sales that come through the Shop app. So if you have a business that's on the Shop app, which is newer, but I know a lot of brands we work with do have some sales through there. If someone's buying through the Shop app, those are treated like marketplace sales, and Shopify will be responsible for those for dealing with tax for those, just like a Amazon or any other marketplace. But for the vast majority of your sales through Shopify, those will be treated just like normal e-commerce sales.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so that helps answer part of that. If you are making sales through Shop and those are marketplace transactions, then Shopify will collect and remit those sales and that tax for you. You want to make sure that they are collecting and remitting those. I believe there's been some issues with Amazon recently where companies are kind of unknowingly opting out of Amazon collecting those the marketplace transactions and the tax there. So take a look at that and make sure if you are selling there that Shopify is collecting and remitting for you. But then you'll also want to make sure that you're still considering those transactions that are taking place through Shop. And do they still need to be reported? That's going to depend on the state. But if the state does require you to report your marketplace transactions, then you'll still want to make sure you're registered and reporting those transactions. You could also be doing transactions through something outside of Shopify. So if you are a marketplace through Shop, but you also have a location or you have other means of making transactions, you'll want to make sure that you're still registered and you're reporting that additional tax that's being collected. Yeah.
We had a kind of a pricing related question that came in from Sarah through our Q&A. And it was about, and hopefully I understand the question correctly, kind of our order processing plan, which we call either our starter or our premium plans. And then there's pricing for our sales tax filing. So just to hit on our pricing and how things work at TaxCloud so people can know if you're interested. We have a subscription plan, which is for the integration with Shopify. Any Shopify customer will be on our Shopify plan, which is, if you look at our pricing page, it's just the starter plan is the price point you'd be paying. And that's for the connection, the integration that also will get you access to the enrolled in the SST program, even though you will not pay for orders or filings within the SST program. And we will take the Shopify orders in as well as any other orders you have from other channels, and we'll run that through and we'll do all of our reporting and Nexus tracking within TaxCloud. So that's kind of the base subscription in terms of helping you, get the tracking, getting the visibility within our subscription. And then we have plans for your filings based on based on the number of filings that you're doing. These plans can be as low as $39 per filing. For comparison, generally a lot of the other tools that are out there, the price per filing is anywhere from $70 or more. And that price will be based on the number of filings that you're doing. So we like to tell people, like, as you're looking at price, look at the price on Shopify Tax, which is, it will be capped at 5,000 for Shopify Tax. And then you can work with the provider on the subscription cost and filing costs as well. So happy to do a call with folks if people have any questions about that. And then we do, I think we had a question around our add-on for like audit support and things like that. Tom, if you would like to speak to that, you can. But that's an additional add-on service. We don't necessarily think every customer needs that, but if you have Nexus in a lot of states and particularly have a complicated situation, it could be beneficial. But that's certainly not a requirement in any means to use a solution like ours. So hopefully that was helpful. Tom, any of these you want to highlight and address quickly?
Yeah, I can take that second one as well. At what point is the sales tax liability to a state required to be reported when the sales order is placed or when the sales order is fulfilled? So most states are going to go by fulfillment date. And it's definitely a business to business situation as well. It depends. If you're selling t-shirts and you're selling volume, things are going to be a little bit different than if you're selling, let's say, machinery and you might only have a couple transactions a year. If it's high dollar amount situations like that, you're going to want to make sure that those are being recorded in the correct month. So you're going to want to check with that state to make sure, what do I have to go by? Because what might happen, and even if you're selling t-shirts, sales order might be placed on the 31st and then it gets fulfilled, in the following month. What states look for, in my experience, working through audits and different situations, they're going to look for consistency. So it can be difficult with different taxing situations and different systems that you're using. So what they are going to look for is that you're handling the situations the same, so that you're following the same order of processing that data and getting it to the state. States typically aren't going to ding you if something gets ordered one month, and you report it that month, but then the next month when it gets fulfilled, you don't. So definitely figure out a process that works for you, and look into the states where you need to. Reach out to a sales tax professional who can help kind of guide you in that and answer those questions. But definitely figure out a process and stick to it for each transaction.
Fantastic.
And then, just that last one, migration from Avalara. We talked about this quite a bit. Just make sure that you have your login credentials. You're getting all that information from Avalara. Sometimes they may be using a third party, which in that case they may not be able to provide you your login credentials, because then they'd be providing all of their customers' information as well. So figure out a plan to make sure that you can get those login credentials. You may have to create login accounts. It may not be as easy as just requesting it from Avalara. They may tell you that you need to create some. You may have to do password resets. You may need to work with some of the states to get that. And it can be time consuming. It may not be something that you can get done in one day. It may take a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks to get all the login credentials you need. So definitely plan for that. And have a plan that you're sticking to before that contract expires with whichever provider you're using.
Awesome. And then I'll just put in the chat here that folks can see. If you do have questions about migration or we had some pricing questions on here. I just included a link to, if you do want to talk to anyone of our team about this. We really put a value in having people ready to answer questions and talk to people and walk you through what other businesses have been doing. So if that's helpful for anyone, you can find that link in the chat, or obviously you can go to taxcloud.com as well. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I can answer Sarah's question. Is there reporting by filing jurisdiction? Every state's different. Some states like Massachusetts, you're just going to have a single tax rate and it's just reported at the state level. States like Colorado, you're going to have state administered returns and then home rule returns, locally administered returns. So you could be registered really for, I think it's like 80 or something locals. There's a Denver city return, there's Boulder returns, there's a bunch of different returns. So certainly something that you want to consider, and where you're registering and how you're reporting. At TaxCloud, we use a site that called SUTS, SUTS, that allows us to file and report at all of those home rule jurisdictions in Colorado on one return. So certainly something to consider, and yeah, and to look into. How do tax reports determine exempt status of order? So based off of the information that you feed into TaxCloud, that's how our reports are going to generate. So when we go to file, typically if you have exemptions, you can provide us the description of that. We have that in our system as well. But if you're sale for resale, you'll want to make sure you have resale certificates. But when it comes to reporting those returns, you can let us know, or we can look into our reports as well to see, are they sale for resale, or is it a product exemption or a non-taxable transaction, things like that.
Thanks, Tom.
Mhm.
We have a couple more minutes maybe for one or two more questions if anyone has any. I know we covered a lot today, so okay, if not. Yeah, I think. I think that. Haven't seen any. Come through yet? All right, awesome. Well, I think it's a good time for us to wrap things up here. I appreciate Tom. Thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. We'll be sending these slides out. As just a kind of few quick recaps here. We definitely, when you're looking at on the filing side, working with a partner that can help automate on the filing is a huge value add. You want to work with a partner that's really built for brands that are growing on Shopify and that's going to be there, and make sure that you have support and coaching you need as you're going through the migration. Hopefully some of the insights we gave here are helpful if you are thinking and looking at a migration. Whether you use TaxCloud or not, make sure you can use these best practices to end up in the right place. And rely on tools out there that have a credibility in working with Shopify merchants. The Shopify ecosystem is really large. There's a lot of providers out there to look at. So make sure you're going with a provider that has a proven track record of delivering. So thank you again for everyone for taking the time. You'll see an email from us with the recording and the slides. And Tom, thanks again. Any final words before we wrap up here?
No, thanks for putting this on, Ryan. Thanks for everyone for joining and yeah, listening to me talk about sales tax. My wife's sick of me talking about it, so it's good to come here and talk about it.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.